April is known as World Autism Awareness Month. And for one young New Hampshire teen, being blind, much less being diagnosed with autism, hasn't stopped him from finding his voice. Pro-Life of Pioneer Valley will be holding its annual breakfast April 27th, and the keynote speaker this year is that young man who is breaking down the barriers for people with disabilities. CAROLEE McGrath introduces us now to Christopher Duffley.
Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you.
At 17 years old, Christopher Duffley is doing things most teens only dream of. He's a singer-songwriter. He has performed in front of packed audiences from coast to coast. He sang the national anthem at the Red Sox game. He has a podcast and released 2 albums.
All I want to sing is a love without a doubt. The healer of my heart, I can't live without you.
Christopher is blind and autistic, but is on what his family calls a mission possible. He will be the keynote speaker at the annual breakfast for Pro-Life of Pioneer Valley to be held April 27th in Granby.
At the Pro-Life breakfast, I'll be pretty much sharing my story of how I survived premature birth and how I was adopted.
Christopher is the youngest of 5 children.
Christopher was born to my brother. So my brother is Christopher's dad. And he had called us to say that he and his girlfriend were pregnant, and we were kind of happy about that. And then all of a sudden, we got a phone call that Christopher was born prematurely, 1 pound, 12 ounces at 26 weeks. And as the story unraveled, unfortunately, they were both using drugs, and they lost custody of Christopher about 4 months later.
Christine and her husband Stephen had just had their 4th baby, but they couldn't help worrying about Christopher in foster care. So she traveled from New Hampshire to Florida to find him.
I went through the week praying very intently, but by the end of the week, I was desperate to know. And I just got down on my face, literally, and I asked God, what's the answer? But I heard him talk gently to my heart, like, do not be afraid. I will help you through this.
That's weird, because I don't physically hear stuff like that.
I know. Well, it's that whisper that you hear in your heart when you come before the Lord and you're seeking His will.
His parents say he sang before he could hold a conversation. His father, Stephen, introduced him at a Christian conference in New Hampshire where he sang "Open the Eyes of My Heart" when he was 10 years old.
I was asked to introduce Christopher and give a little bit of a timeline on his life, and it's hard to keep my composure talking about Christopher's story. But he was born in May of 2011. 2001. Thank you. You can tell him, he can do it better than I can. I have to go back a few years, yeah. And his mother was on drugs, Oxycontin and cocaine. And he was a nephew of ours. And we went down to Florida and took him out of the foster care system in August of 2002. And he's been a blessing to our family.
The video went viral with more than 2 million views.
Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you.
I was just having a pretty good time out there, just praising God, taking all the other video stuff and whatnot for granted. Plus, I couldn't even see the darn camera.
Lauren Daigle has a beautiful Christmas song, and I think one of the phrases in it is, "Come and see what God has done." Mm-hmm. Can you believe what God has done through your son?
Yes and no, right?
Right. Well, Christopher, you're
Yes
right.
and no. Yeah.
Yes and no. That, first of all, I'm humbled. And my husband would say the same thing. We're very humbled how this viral video has affected people. That our yes has created this tidal wave. But there's a lot to Christopher. There are teachers, there are so many other people that when we share our story, we want to make sure that God is given the glory for this great orchestration.
Christopher is now a sought-after speaker and performer, booked at churches, schools, disability ministry events, and for corporate events. The whole pro-life issue, unfortunately, becomes political, with people getting fired up on both sides. But Christopher Duffley cuts through that brilliantly and beautifully with his story and his music, showing people that everyone's life matters and that everyone has purpose.
My second or third main message, I guess, is to not judge, to not just prejudge on the outside. Get in the inside first.
When we talk about people with disabilities, we talk about a complete community. We go back to the scripture of that we are many parts and we are all one body. And that's a significant thing, because what Christopher brings to the world, someone else cannot. Mother Teresa says it beautiful. What you do, I cannot do, and what I do, you cannot do.
Let's say they have autism or Down syndrome or something else. If they can do what they do, they're good for who they are. That's literally what my other main message is here. And that is what I'm trying to spread around the globe here.
Holy, holy, holy.
And he certainly is, reaching out to people who are in the church and those who've been away from the church. He's reaching out to people who consider themselves pro-life and those who are lukewarm on the issue, opening the eyes of their hearts through his music and his message. Reporting for Reel to Reel, I'm CAROLEE McGrath.